Hi, this is Hewie Poplock. I have 9 or 10 people online with me, and we are recording this. This is a uh, session on Zoom settings. And today we're going to cover the master settings or the main settings for the Zoom account. Now, this is not meant for the attendees, and this isn't a tutorial on how to use Zoom. It is more an informational session on what all the settings are within Zoom. And there are a lot of places where you can go for different settings. One fellow that I'm friends with online, he's done a spreadsheet, and he's somewhere's 80 some odd items that you can set, and they all have, a lot of them have sub items under them. So there's literally well over 100 different settings for your account, which can make things work the way you want them for your meetings, depending upon what you're trying to accomplish. And so today I am signed on to my zoom.us in my account. And when I do that, I went over to meetings, and I'm sorry, and then I went to settings. And the reason I'm going to settings is this is the main place for your settings. And there's actually 3 headings. I'm only going to cover the meeting today. And then tomorrow we're going to talk about the recording and telephone portion of this, which will be a much shorter session. And then on Friday, we're going to talk about setting up a meeting and scheduling a meeting and all the settings for it. But these are the master settings for your account, the things you want. And you can go at any time and change them. And in some cases, you can even change them during a meeting. But in most cases, you can't, because you can't get in here. But let's go ahead and start. The first item, and as we move down here, let's see. Let me make it one size smaller so you can see the other menu. No, 2. And no, okay, well, what we're going to talk about first is hosting a meeting and starting meetings with the host video on. Do you want your video on when you start a meeting?
Sure.
Well, this is an up and down. This can be either way, and that's why you have a choice of yes or no. You might want to make sure that you look good, you feel good, you're comfortable before you turn that video on. So you want to schedule the meeting, start the meeting, and then go ahead and turn yourself, and then turn your video on. The same thing with participants' videos. Do you want them to come in and have their video on? Although I believe they have to turn it on now for security reasons. But do you want them to, if they have that set that way, do you want them to be able to log on and their picture is going to be up, or do you want them to get comfortable, then turn it on? And you may not even want to have them on at all, but that's a different setting. So I leave them in the off position, and then let myself turn the video on, and I also let the attendees turn their videos on. As far as the audio type goes, you can determine how participants can join your meeting. They can do it with a telephone, or they can do it with their computer audio, or they can do it with either or both. So I keep it checked with both. So if somebody wants to use a phone and call into the meeting, they can. If you don't want that to happen, you just have computer audio checked. And possibly later on, we can talk about why you might want to allow them and why you might not want to. Okay, join before host. Allow the participants to join the meeting before the host arrives. This should be turned off for security purposes. Otherwise, somebody can get in there, and depending upon what they can do, they can be in there before you get there, and they can be saying things, doing things. You don't know you have no control over them at all. Mm-hmm. The best thing to do is not allow them in before you arrive. So if somebody gets there early, it'll say, meeting will start shortly when the when the host starts the meeting. Enable a personal meeting ID. This is a personal meeting, not your general meeting. It's a PMI. You can have a personal meeting as well, and that's assigned to your account. You can visit the personal meeting room to change your personal meeting settings. I'm not going to go there because it gives away my password and my account. And that personal meeting room number is always the same. And so what you don't want to do is give it out. So it's best not to do that anyway. If you're going to do a quick and dirty get together with somebody, and I don't mean dirty, but I mean just quick and easy, the best thing to do is just create a simple meeting, schedule a meeting, and then just give them the link to it. Same thing, do you want to use your personal meeting ID when scheduling a meeting, and I keep that turned off. And I use the personal meeting when starting an instant meeting, and I've got that turned off as well. If you start an instant meeting, it creates a new meeting address rather than using your personal account. And do you want to require a password for the personal meeting? I would. And you could do it only meetings with join before host enabled. We shouldn't have that anyway. And then all meetings using PMI is the way I have it. And I do have it turned on. The next session, only authenticated users can join meetings. We aren't, I know Stug doesn't use it, CFCS doesn't use it, I don't. Where the participants need to authenticate prior to joining meetings, and they have to register, and you register them through Zoom, and they have to have an account set up with you, and there's a registration. It's a lot of work, and for most of the meetings that I do, and probably most of you will do, you're probably not going to want to have that. And again, authenticated users can join from a web client. I just keep that shut off so it just doesn't happen. Require a password when scheduling new meetings. Now this has been added recently as a security, and it's a good idea to have it on. A password will be generated when scheduling a meeting, and participants require the password to join the meeting. And that adds, and it's encrypted in the link, so that's what makes that link so long, is the encryption of that meeting password. Now, when you send out the invite, you give them the password anyway. So what's the value of it? The value is that they have found that Zoom naysayers and people who want a Zoom bomb and so on, they have software out there in the dark regions of the web that they can actually create Zoom meeting numbers on the fly and get into it and keep trying them until they get into a meeting. And they can't get in if they don't have the password. And that machine and that software doesn't do that. So it will keep those people out. So it's a good reason to have it. And then also require a password for instant meetings. That's probably not so important because you're probably talking to one person. Oh, let's have a quick meeting online. And here's the link. And do they need a password? No, but I turn it on and the link contains it, so there's no problem anyway. Embed the password in the link, in the invite link for one-click join. In other words, if you don't want them to have that long link and they have to type in the password, you can shut this off. Require a password for participants to join by phone. So when they call by phone, it still will ask them for a password. And they can call in. Someone can join your meeting only with a phone, or they can use the phone for their audio listening and talking, and then have their computer on with the, obviously with the speakers turned off in the computer so there's no feedback, but they would have two connections to your meeting, but they still could talk and listen with your meeting and by joining with the phone. And by having a phone password, when you make up your password, now when Zoom does it, it automatically makes it with numbers. Some people I'm seeing typing letters and so on. Well, if you've got people joining by phone, they can't type in letters. So you want to usually make it just numbers and make them random. Don't do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Or what I do is I just touch keys and create one by myself, or let them generate one. Mute participants on entry. Do you want all of them people, when they enter, do you want them to be muted and then they unmute themselves? Now, this is good, especially if you got people coming into a meeting late. And if they come in late, then if they're muted, then there's no noises and microphone noises and so on, and them talking to their wives or husbands, or the TV is on. You don't hear any of that until they unmute themselves. But they might have a chance to sit down and, oh, I better turn off the radio or turn off the TV, and so on. So I like to mute them on entry, but I don't even have it on. So I haven't been doing that, but I probably should. So if I click it, it now turns it on. And that's how quickly it is to update your setting. Upcoming meeting reminders, receive desktop. This is for you now. You'll get a desktop notification for upcoming meetings. A reminder time can be configured to the Zoom desktop client. So if I wanted the computer to remind me through notifications, I could click that on. Now the next section is in meeting, and this is for basic information now. Require encryption for third-party endpoints. By default, Zoom requires encryption for all data transferred between the Zoom cloud, the Zoom client, and the Zoom room. Turn on this setting to require encryption for third-party endpoints as well. To be honest with you, I don't quite know what that means. Mine's turned off. I never turned it on. I don't know if I have third-party endpoints. That might mean something like Manycam. I am not sure. And that would encrypt that as well. I probably should have that turned on. Chat, allow meeting participants to send message visible to all participants. I have it turned on. And if you look on your chat at any time, one of the choices next to the 3 dots to the chat is you can save the chat anytime during your meeting. During the meeting or towards the end before it shuts down, or you can highlight the whole thing and save it then too. But if you save, you're allowed to save it. But if the host, you as the host, you don't want your participants to save the chat, you can click that and that will stop them. Now you can also not allow them to send messages to all participants. I'm not sure why, but if you don't want a lot of crosstalk and chat, you can turn that off. Mm-hmm. Now the next one is private chat, and that allows the meeting participants to send a private one-to-one message to any other participant. Now there's a couple of things with that. I've got it turned on to allow it. I don't care. You can talk to each other and send notes back and forth. But if you're teaching a class, especially to kids, remember passing notes in school?
Yep.
Well, this, or answers to questions. This will eliminate that. And so you turn that off, and they can't send private messages. They can send messages to everyone, and I believe to you, but they can't send them to anyone else. Now, auto-saving chats automatically save in-meeting chats, so the hosts do not need to manually save the chat after the meeting starts. So you as the host can set that, and then as soon as the meeting ends, you will have a file that will be saved in your Zoom folder with the date of the meeting, and you'll have a text file with all of the chat. Now, it will not contain any private chats that you are not included in. So if Paul and Nancy are having a chat back and forth, when I get the auto-save chat, that would not be in there. Play a sound when participants join or leave. I have that turned off. That can get quite annoying if you got people coming and going throughout your meeting. And so the best thing to do is turn it off. I believe you still get a sound when the first person enters, and then after that you don't have it. But it might be something that you want the sound on every time somebody comes in the meeting. The file transfer, question? No, okay. File transfer, host and participants can send files through the meeting chat. They actually changed that, and let's see, 4.6. You can still use it. For a while, when there was all the talk of all of the security issues, one of the security problems was with file transfer.
Yes.
And so by default, I've got it shut off so people can't do that. I don't want them sending files through Zoom for the reason is I don't know what's in that file or what the file is. And I don't want somebody, all the precautions I can take, there could be somebody in there that might have a file that might have something in there that we don't want to share, or it has some kind of a virus in it. So the best thing to do is not do that. There are other ways to transfer files. Some of the people that I talk about these things with on a regular basis, they say they like this because they can do a screen capture of what's going on, send the file right through Zoom, and then the people at the other end can take a look at it. I tried it once, and I wasn't able to see the file that I sent, so I have not played with it to any extent, but it's something that you, when you're running your meetings, whether you want to have it or not. The next one has to do with sending feedback to Zoom. I do have that turned on, and I don't know what that does. According to one of the articles, I said it sends something back or asks some questions, or you can enable users to send feedback to Zoom at the end of the meeting, and I've got it. I see it. It's turned on. It may be turned off somewhere else, and that's why it doesn't work, or I don't see it, or maybe it does work and I just haven't noticed it. The next one is display end of meeting experience feedback survey. I have that turned off. That displays a thumbs up or a thumbs down survey at the end of each meeting. If participants respond with a thumbs down, they can provide additional information of what went wrong. I just haven't put that on. I don't like forcing people to have to say or do things, and most of them will usually send you a note if there was a problem or if they liked it. But it's something you could turn on, and I may turn it on a couple of times to try it, but I've not used it. The next one, this is something I really think should be turned on. I've had some discussions with some people on it. It allows the host to add co-hosts. In other words, I could assign 2 or 3 of you the position of co-host, and then you would be able to let people in the room when I'm busy and there's people in the waiting room. You can remove somebody who's noisy while I'm doing a presentation. In other words, you have some of the same responsibilities and can do some of the same things that a host could. If you don't have this turned on, you're the only one that can do all of that, and that's your eyes have to be in 10 different places, especially if you're doing the presentation too. So I like to have that on. You don't have to use it. You don't have to assign it. Nobody in this meeting is assigned a co-host, but if I wanted to, I could choose any one of you as a co-host. Polling. We've tried this in several meetings. I have not personally done it, but it adds a poll to the meeting controls, and this allows the host to survey the attendees. And you can do this in advance, have the polls ready, and I understand you can have up to 25 polls already in your system, so you can call up any one of them. What the poll allows them to do is then answer a question, several questions, and then it keeps track of them. Any co-host or host only sees the answers. They can't answer the questions. But you can, once you say, okay, the poll is closed now, you can then hit a button and they can see the results on the screen for that poll.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
only because I'm going to have to leave in a few minutes. Going back to the waiting room,
Sure.
is there a way after a certain period of time the waiting room gets just locked out, that we don't accept people, like if 20 minutes into the meeting, we don't want new people coming in at that point?
No, but I understand if they sit in the waiting room, somebody was saying there may be a time that it just they're going to be booted because you didn't let them in the meeting. But as far as uh, the meeting room going away, no, it just sits there.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Okay. So we just talked about polls. Always show the meeting control toolbar. You know, if you're on a PC and you move your mouse down to the bottom, you get a toolbar with all of the chat and whether you want to turn off your microphone or your screen and so on. Well, that goes away when you move your mouse off, and then you got to move your mouse back down for it to come back. Well, we can set that up to always show it during a meeting. And I believe there's a way within the meeting you can do that as well. And we'll take a look at that as we look at this meeting setup. But that's a way which, at least you as the host, it would always be on the bottom of your screen. And this is not when you're sharing your screen, only when you're within all of the videos. Shows Zoom windows during the screen share. So I have that turned on. I see over to the right of me, I see all of your videos. Well, I could turn that off, and there's also some ways in which you can do that with side by side and turn the side by side off. And then at the top, there's also some little. There's a little bar, a bigger bar, 2 bars, and then a whole bunch of dots, and you can choose whether you want 1 or 2. You want one showing, you want them all showing, you want them all minimized. Okay, screen sharing. Who can share their screens? I say host only, and then I can give you the permission to do it. You do not want to have all participants unless you want a free-for-all or you've got a very closed group. But this is where Zoom bombing is prevented. If they can't, one of the ways in which Zoom bombing is minimized anyway, because they can't share their screen and show anything they want. They have to have permission in order to share their screen, and how you do that is you click and say, make them a co-host, and they can then open it. And there's another setting on the host screen that I can say, let's see, under security, it says allow participants to share a screen. So I can turn that on, turn that off during a meeting as well. But by default, I have it set only the host can share. And then who can start sharing when someone else is sharing? Again, right now that's grayed out, but it would be the host only as well. So you don't want to allow people to share their screen at any time because you've got no control over it then.
Control.
Yep. Disable desktop screen share for users. Disable the desktop or screen share in a meeting and only allow the sharing of selected applications. If you go to share your screen, you can either share your whole desktop or individual programs that you already have open or a whiteboard. And this says, okay, you can't do your whole desktop, but you can do let's say a PowerPoint. And you can open up PowerPoint, and that's the only thing you can open. So we don't get to see anything else on your screen. So that is another safety precaution, so that if you give somebody access to sharing their screen, they're only showing one thing, and they can't share their whole desktop. There may be some things on their desktop you don't want other people to see. There may be other reasons you don't want them, or they can just open up a program that you don't want them to.
Here, that gets to be a pain if you have this checked, because unless you've already opened and minimized that application, you've got no way of getting to it.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you disable a desktop, they can't get to their desktop in order to open up a program they forgot they have open. So they've got to come back out, and then you've got to allow that, so on. You're absolutely correct there. The next one's annotation. And annotation, I highly suggest that you keep it off. It's a neat little feature, and it allows participants to annotate, to use annotation tools to mark up things on the screen, to make circles, to throw arrows up there, to type in some text, and so on. They can do it at any time when you're sharing your screen. I've seen it where somebody, oh, there's a pen here. They start scribbling on the screen while you're doing your presentation, and it doesn't go away unless they know how to erase it. Or if they really want to be nasty and naughty and they're trying to Zoom bomb you, they can sit there and draw pictures that are very suggestive or make words. So I make sure you turn annotation off. The first couple of meetings that I did with Zoom, that was turned on, and people just were testing it, and they started scribbling on there, and all of a sudden I realized in the when I saw the recording, there were lines on my presentation that I didn't put there. The whiteboard, do you want them to have access to the whiteboard or not? And then do you want to save any content that's on the whiteboard when it's stopped? I don't have that turned on, but I do allow people, if they want to use the whiteboard, they can, if I give them access to, they get to the whiteboard by sharing their screen, and one of the choices is whiteboard. And so they can go there then.
What do you do on a whiteboard? Just draw?
Yeah, it'd be like having a blackboard in a classroom, or a whiteboard in a classroom. You can draw, you can put text up there. Once in a while, I use it if somebody's online and I don't know whether they can hear me or not. I'll write a note on the whiteboard so they can see it. It's easier than what I was doing before then. Is I'd open up Notepad, I'd write it in Notepad, change the font to a big font, share my screen, and put Notepad up, which was a real pain, where this just makes it easier. The next item is remote control. During the screen sharing, a person who is sharing can allow others to control the content, shared content. So if you have this turned on, this feature turned on, I could be, while I'm doing this, I could say, Bob could come in, if I gave him permission to. He could come in and he could actually move my mouse around and click on some things for me. So this is good if you're doing some help and you're helping each other. But other than that, I would not suggest to have it open. Nonverbal feedback. Participants in a meeting can provide nonverbal feedback and express opinions by clicking on the icons in the participants panel. If you click the participants panel, you will see a whole bunch of non-verbal feedback little buttons that you can push. Yep, Paul raised his hand. And so on. So you can turn that feature on or off. It can become a real pain, but it's a nice feature if you got a group of people that's going to benefit and you're going to benefit by it. But it's just one more thing that you can use during your meeting if you want. Allow removed participants to rejoin. If you're having problems and you're kicking out people because they're causing issues, or their microphone just is giving you feedback and feedback and feedback, and there's nothing you mute them and they unmute themselves, and it's still a lot of noise and feedback, or they're saying things you don't want them to, and so on, and you kick them out, well, they can turn around, come right back in. However, if you have this turned on, this allows them to come back in. Otherwise, they can't get back in. Once you've kicked them out for the meeting, they're out of the meeting.
How do you kick them out?
There is a, under security, and I'm sure you probably can't see this, but there is a remove participant button, and you can remove them. This is the value of having a co-host, because while I'm doing my presentation and we had that kind of a problem, my co-host could kick somebody out, and I'm I don't lose a beat while I'm doing my presentation. Allow participants to rename themselves. We have that turned on and learned how to use that just today. Came in and she used an account that had a long name to it. It didn't have her name on it. Sometimes people come in with a telephone and it has their phone number there. Well, we want to put a name to it so we know who they are. And you as the host can change it, but you can also allow the participants to rename themselves. I don't think they can do it if they're on with a phone. You have to do it for them. But anybody who comes in, excuse me, anyone who comes in can change their names if you have allowed them to. Now you can turn that feature off so they can't do it. Hide the participant profile picture in a meeting. All participant profile pictures will be hidden and only the names of the participants will be displayed on the video screen. Participants will not be able to update their profile pictures in the meeting. And so if you turn your video off and you have an account with Zoom and have uploaded a picture to it, when you turn off your video, that picture comes up. And that's what happens with mine. If you don't have an account and or have an account and have not uploaded a picture, it will not, it'll just post your name, whatever name you signed in with.
Gotta go. Thank you.
Okay, Dave, thank you.
Yeah, Dave. See ya.
The next section in this is in meeting but advanced stuff. So let's go to that. How are we doing on time? We're doing, I think, probably we're doing real good. If you have questions, either during this, fine. If not, at the end, I'll take some questions as well. In the meeting, advanced. Report participants to Zoom. I'm not sure if this will do you any good. I think I have turned it on. But because we don't have people signing into the meetings, there's not really a good way to utilize that. So for the most part, for us, there's not much value. A breakout room. You can have a breakout room and allow the host to split meeting participants into separate, smaller rooms within the same account. I've never done it. I don't even have it turned on, but you can have it where Paul and Nancy could go to a separate room and discuss how to do something, and then come back and report to us, or they could work on a problem amongst themselves and then come back and just join in on the meeting. So you can have a breakout room. You can have remote support. You can allow a meeting host to provide one-to-one remote support for another participant. So you don't have to use Quick Assist. You don't have to use Team Viewer. You can do some remote support through Zoom. I've not used it. Some of the people that I've spoken to have said it's really good. It's strictly a one-to-one. So it's just helping somebody else, just another way to go in and work with them on their computer.
Hewie, I have a question.
Sure.
Actually, I don't know if you're going to cover it or if it was intended to be covered, but when you do breakout rooms, you have the option of having either Zoom to randomly make the groups and do the math. In other words, if you have 20 participants, you can have it broken up into 5 groups of 4 or 4 groups of 5. And it can randomly assign the attendees to the rooms, which is better. Because once you start giving people the right to put whatever they want in whatever room they want, then they'll say, well, I want to be with so-and-so, or so-and-so should be with me, and this and that. And that just takes up more time. So it's best to say, well, let the computer randomly assign you your groups. So whoever you wind up with, that's who you are in that group for that breakout room for that session. I think it works better that way.
Yeah, there's different ways you can do it. As I say, I have not worked with breakout rooms. I have not played with it. But and the biggest reason is I haven't had a reason to. Right. You don't want to use it if you don't have a reason to.
Right.
But in some meetings that would there'd be some good. You maybe have 2 people go off to the side and come up with some ideas for the meeting, and then come back in and report to everybody.
Exactly. For discussion groups, you know, you give them a little problem to work on. You break them up into groups or teams, and then at the end, each one represents their group, and they talk when you dissolve the breakout rooms. And each person who represents each breakout room could speak for their group.
Yeah, it's
a chaotic thing where everybody's trying to get in.
Yeah, it's a real nice feature in Zoom. Closed captioning. Allow the host to type closed captions or assign a participant or third party to add closed captions. I have that turned off, and the main reason is there's a way to do it a lot easier. And remind me to talk about that at the end, because what you could do is let Zoom do it for you. Now, to save captions, allow participants to save fully closed captions or transcripts. Again, we're not using it, so I have that shut off. Far end camera control. Allow another user to take control of your camera during a meeting where they can turn it on, turn it off.
Oh.
And I don't see a reason to do that, and I have that turned off in my main settings so no one can do it. Group HD video, that's grayed out. And activate higher quality video for host and participants, and it's going to use more bandwidth. So it's best if you have the ability to do it to keep it turned off.
Mhm.
The virtual background. I have a virtual background. Bob G has one. David has one. You can use this. It's a really neat feature, but sometimes it can really be disruptive in a meeting. I've had people with crazy things in the background and faces and
Animations.
and so you can make it so they can't do it. But then again, it might be something that you want to have turned on so so they can do what they want to do and hide the rest of their room. I certainly don't want you to see what's behind me, but
I've had a couple of instances where they used that feature, the virtual background, to get around the Zoom bombing. So you have to also be careful.
yep. Again, if you have a co-host, they can catch that while you're doing your presentation.
Right.
Let's see, identify guest participants. This has to do with it. If you have people who are signed into your account and you have a list in your account, and you can do that because then you can send out invites and only the people who are invited can get into your meetings. But that means everybody has to register to your Zoom account and then use that registration to sign into the meetings each time. And most of us don't bother with that. We do it our own way. We have our own way to control, and we sometimes want the meetings open as open as we can, and so we don't go to that extreme. So I leave that off. Auto answer group and chat. You can turn that on, and that enables users to see and add contacts to auto answer group in the contact list on chat. So you can automatically say, I'm busy now or something, and I think that's a waste of time, to be honest with you, so I don't have that checked. Only show default email when sending email invites. You can send an invite directly from Zoom, and I think you can do it from the participant page. It'll say invite, and you can send an invite to somebody. This has to do with how that invite gets sent. And then use the HTML format email for an Outlook plugin. So there's an Outlook plugin you can get to use HTML formatting instead of plain text for meeting invitations scheduled with the Outlook plugin. Allow users to select stereo audio in their client settings. To be honest with you, I don't care one way or the other until I had an incident this last week where somebody had their system audio stereo on, and my head was ringing. I couldn't figure out where noises were coming from. It was very distracting, and we finally figured out who it was, or she figured it out who it was herself, and she shut off the stereo with her system. But it was I just don't allow it, so I wouldn't have that problem. But it can get confusing at best. Allow users to select original sound in their client settings. I have no clue what that means, so I have it turned off. Select data center regions for meeting or webinars. This is one of the new features that There was a lot of negative press about Zoom a few months ago about them using servers in China. Now you can specify what countries you will allow servers to be used when you're Zooming. And I have just Canada, US is checked by default, and I checked Canada, and I said, well, that's all I want. So that's all I have checked in mine. You can add others if you want, and if you so choose, you can check China. As far as the waiting room goes, do you want it turned on or turned off? By default now that it is turned on when you create a Zoom account, and I would suggest leaving it. When participants join a meeting, place them in a waiting room, and that's what you went through when you joined, and that's what you can turn that feature off if you don't want it. They automatically, as soon as they come in, they join the meeting. Now, who's going to go into the waiting room? All participants. Now, the guest only would be, again, if you have registered users in your account, and then you wanted to have any guests that weren't on that list, then they could be in the waiting room, but your participants in your system could then automatically just go right into the meeting. Now, in that meeting room, there is a place where you can customize the title, logo, and description, and there's a little thing here. And so down at the bottom where it says, please wait, the meeting host will let you in soon, you can put a logo down there and maybe your meeting topic. I don't use it because I'd have to change it for every meeting, and right now I'm doing so many meetings I'd forget and to be the wrong one. But if you're like for the STUG meetings, you could have the STUG logo and then whatever the meeting topic is, and then just change that for each meeting. The next item is show a join from your browser link. This allows participants to bypass the Zoom application download process and join a meeting directly from their browser. You know, I did this originally, and I never had the Zoom application on my computer, and I kept seeing pictures of it, and I couldn't find it. I didn't have it. So somehow this last couple of weeks, I finally was able to download it. But I generally join through the browser, and in my meetings, you can do that as well. When you click on the link, it takes you right into it. You don't have to go into the app on a PC or a Mac, or even on some of the phones and tablets. Others say, no, you got to have the app or it won't let you in.
So why do you have it off?
I don't know. It works. That just show a join from your browser. So it's showing, you know what? Why do I? Let's turn on and find out what it does. Thank you.
Huey, I keep getting a notice and I keep looking to see what's going on with my email, but it's your email notices.
Oh, sorry about that. I forgot to shut that off. That's another thing you should do is shut most things down when you're doing a meeting that run in the background, and I didn't do it. We got yakking and I didn't do it. So I apologize for that. Allow streaming meetings. I've got it turned on because one of the groups I work with, we did it to YouTube, but you can also do it to Facebook. And what that means, if you have, now the group that I worked with had their own YouTube channel. You got to have a YouTube channel or a Facebook page, I believe for your group, but it could be any Facebook page. But you then have to ask permission when you click, but it gives you a button, and when you click the, let's say it's YouTube, when you click the button to live stream the YouTube, it'll say, okay, what group are you going to, or what YouTube channel do you want to go to, and or what account do you want it to be on? You put that in, and then it will actually start right away streaming to that YouTube, and anyone on YouTube that goes to your channel can watch the meeting. And there's also a chat that's in YouTube. The thing about doing it that way is when your meeting, just before your meeting ends, you click the stop share is stop allowing the live streaming, it'll automatically start turning it into a recording, and that recording will be done. You don't have to download, or you don't have to capture a video. You don't have to then upload it to YouTube and do all the things to get it to YouTube. It's there and ready. So people can watch the recording of your meeting almost instantly. It does take a while for it to render on the website, and they'll see something going around and around for a little while. And if the meeting's fairly long, it could take a little bit of time. When I say a little bit of time, I'm not sure. It could take, you know, I've never timed it, but it could take just a few minutes or an hour, depending upon how long your video is. But you don't have to do anything with it, and it's there. And it's great. And then also during your meeting, they don't have to sign in to Zoom. So if you're expecting a big group, or if you don't want to be concerned with Zoom bombing and everything else, just have the speakers on Zoom and send it to either YouTube or Facebook, or you can send it to both. And they can live stream. People can be watching it live. It then records it, and they're not involved in the Zoom part of the meeting, and you don't have to worry about any of that. So this is a neat feature, and even the Microsoft, or not Microsoft, the Google Meets program that they're using that's supposedly a lot like Zoom, they can't even do that to YouTube. So it's a nice feature to be able to do it. Email notification. When a cloud recording is available, in other words, if you save you can save your meetings to either the cloud or save it to your local computer. The host can do that, or the host can, I believe the co-host can do it, and they might be able to give it permission to people, somebody else. The feature of having it done locally to your computer is the fact you're only bound by the space that's left on your hard drive. If you do a cloud recording, the pro account, the $15 a month or the $150 a year account, limits you to 1 gigabyte, and that's more or less about an hour. So if you're going to have an hour meeting, you might get all of it recorded and you might not. And if it's going to be longer than that, you may not get all of the recording. I don't know whether it just ends or you don't get any of it. But then you couldn't do a second meeting until somebody downloaded that and got it off there anyway. So it's better to do it to your own computer. The problem with doing it to your own computer is that you got to sit there and wait anywhere from a half an hour to an hour for it to complete downloading to the computer when the meeting ends. Not when the recording ends, but when you end the meeting. The next one on here is when attendees join the meeting before the host. Yeah. Notify the host that participants join the meeting before them. I noticed somebody got on the meeting this morning, clicked the button, and it took them there. They couldn't sign in completely because I've got the feature turned off. They can't be in the meeting beforehand, but I knew they were there because I got an email. So, because I've got that turned on. If a meeting is canceled, and this is really good, like with Stug, where you've got multiple people. If someone canceled the meeting, the person in charge who gets the emails for that account will get a notification the meeting was canceled. Right. When an alternative host is set or removed from a meeting, you'll get a note as well, because you can have an alternative host, and I'm not sure how that works. I still think that the host has to sign in to the meeting, but there might, if you have an alternative host, I believe they have to be registered in the account. When the cloud recording is going to be permanently deleted from trash, you can get a notice for that as well. For whatever reason, I have it turned off. Okay, there's a few more under Other. Blur snapshot on iOS task switcher. I don't use iOS for any of this, so I am not sure, but I went ahead and clicked it on anyway, and it may have been on by default. This enable this option to hide potentially sensitive information from the snapshot of a Zoom main window. This snapshot display as a preview screen in the iOS task switcher when multiple apps are open. And I'm not quite sure what that does, and I'm not sure whether this works if you're not using iOS. So I'm not sure what it does. Invitation by email. Your meeting attendees will receive emails in the language based on their browser or profile settings. That's if they're registered with your system, and you send it out through the system. And you can choose your email language to be, and I have it set at English. Schedule privilege. You can assign users in your account to, in other words, they have to be signed into your account. But they can schedule meetings on your behalf. You can also schedule meetings on behalf of someone that has assigned you scheduling privileges. You and the assigned scheduler must be on a paid plan within the same account. Assigned scheduling privilege, and then right now I have no one, and I don't think with my account I can do it because I'm the only one on the account, and I think we have separate accounts at Stug, so I don't think you can do that between the two accounts. And so I can schedule for no one. And then there's some authentication that's at the bottom of this, and that is the settings, the main settings for Zoom. A lot of information, a lot of settings. And I hope going through these have helped you understand a little bit of how we do things, as well as some of the things that you can do for either your individual meetings or things that you might want to see in some of our meetings. Paul, you have a question.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you mentioned this at the beginning, but all of us have the same account where we log in to the licensed version of Stug.
Can you wait a minute? Can you wait a minute on that question until after I stop the recording?
Oh, okay.
There's some sensitive information I'd like not to be recorded.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Oh, Hewie, I was going to make a comment, 2 comments.
Okay.
On the password issue, you can set the password to anything you want to. If you use alphanumeric in your password, when you create it, the computer will assign a numeric password for the phone, so you don't have to worry about it. So if you notice, if I use alphanumeric, so it sets up a different password on the when you create the screen to send out for the phone, you got a different password.
Oh, it'll have 2 passwords on the invite then?
Yes.
Okay. And then tomorrow, that may be in the settings for tomorrow when we talk about recordings and telephone. And one of the things that we'll be discussing is the telephone setup, and talk about that tomorrow as well.
Yeah. And the other one that you wanted to know about why you want to use the audio when Zoom records audio through the machine, they compress it a little bit. If you change that, then that works for people that have alternate inputs, such as a guitar or a microphone or something coming in, to be able to, or an equalizer or something else, alternative audio going into Zoom.
Okay, what setting was that?
On the enable
Play sound or
play sound, yeah. No, there's one above that. It's on the sound one. It said.
No, we're already at the top here.
Okay, I missed going down.
Huey, you also wanted to be reminded about covering closed caption.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that'll finish up the recording, and then we can do some more questions after that. But what I discovered today from one of the conversations that I had last evening with somebody, that if you upload your video to your channel on YouTube, one of the choices is select a language. Make sure you put a language in there. If you do, for instance, English, and then there's several Englishes you can choose, but I chose English or either that or English United States. When it finishes its working, you will notice when you go to the playback, you got a CC next to it, and you've actually enabled closed captioning, and you will have your entire recording with closed captioning already done. Now, it's not perfect. You can go back actually and edit and update it and change it, but you can also copy it, and it gives you timestamps for it. So then you can put timestamps in your meeting notes on YouTube where people can go to get to a particular item that you talked about. So the closed captioning, when you play something on YouTube, look and see if there's a CC at the bottom, especially at some of mine, or I noticed that all of the Tech for Seniors, Ron did that, and we have closed captioning on all of those. I love what they do to my name. They just brutalize it. But it works, and it works well. So if you ever want to have a script of the presentation you did, and you did it off the cuff, just send it up to YouTube, make it either a public or even just a video that only people with the link can have it, and tell it and put down the language, have it create the closed captioning, and then grab that, and you got your script. And it's already done for you. You might have to go back and clean it up a little bit, change some of the words that it got wrong, but for the most part, you have it. And unless there's something else, I'm going to end the recording, and then we could chat some more.